representing the 5th Congressional District of the state of Arizona. It's Congressman David Schweikert. David, welcome to America's Forum.
Now, Congressman Hayworth, it's a joy to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate that, David, and it's good to have an old friend on. I'm sorry it has to be on with this troubling subject. Earlier this week, you and two of your congressional colleagues, Matt Salmon and Trent Franks, sent a letter to the Director of Veterans Affairs asking that these people be removed. What is your stance now on the administrative leave the three top officials in Phoenix are embarking upon?
My belief is it's the right step in the right direction. Last week was one of those weeks we were home and had a number of meetings with veterans and hearing their experiences at the VA Center, but also we met with some current and past staff. And have you ever had that moment where you're walking away from the coffee and you realize these people just no longer trust the system? And whether, look, I don't want to jump to a conviction because I don't have all the data and information, but what I did have was an understanding of an absolute collapse of faith in the Phoenix VA hospital. And that's why we and a handful of us called for that leadership to step aside.
David, it is worth noting that the Secretary of Veterans Affairs issued a statement that we'll quote to you right now. Quote, "We take these allegations very seriously. We believe it is important to allow an independent, objective review to proceed. These allegations, if true, are absolutely unacceptable. And if the Inspector General's investigation substantiates these claims, swift and appropriate action will be taken." David, a couple of thoughts here, or I want your reaction to something. Number one, it is the role of Congress to offer oversight.
Absolutely.
Jeff Miller's committee is already working this thing. Should the Secretary of Veterans Affairs be waiting on an Inspector General's report, or should Congress now step into the lead with its own investigation? And the other question dovetails off of this. The inertia that exists when you try to make personnel changes in any portion of our government administratively. What can you tell us that's going on that front? I believe the VA committee chairman, Jeff Miller, has a bill to give the Secretary some, imagine this, hiring and firing power.
JD, those are brilliant questions. First one, I actually believe the House has been in the lead on this. Much of the data collection of what was going on at the VA has been going on for about a year. It was a little over a year ago, we were having meetings at our congressional office, and I'm sure it was happening at others, where we were hearing disturbing stories. But, you know, sometimes those are folklore, and you need to dig into them and document them. And those documents had been moving over to the VA Oversight Committee in the House of Representatives. So much of this, I believe, is because of the work we did in the House of Representatives. If the VA IG wants to continue and do a quality investigation, God bless them. But the House is not backing down. And I actually believe even discussions like you and I are having is starting to bring people to our offices to provide us their experiences.
So, David,
we have a cultural problem, though, in the bureaucracies when you find people who, unless you're able to absolutely document malfeasance and misfeasance, you literally can never fire them. The rules we operate under are just outrageous because they protect the bureaucracy and not the public.
David, that equation in mind, we have seen the rise of government unions. Even Franklin Roosevelt warned us against that. But I guess it was in August of 1963, John F. Kennedy signed the executive order allowing the bureaucracy to unionize. With that in mind, you've got Chairman Miller with the bill to restore hiring and firing power to the current Secretary of Veterans Affairs and his successor. But given the political dependence of this current administration on the strength of the union movement, do you even think that this Secretary of Veterans Affairs, even with his background in the military as a general, do you think he would gladly take on the power of firing some of these employees, or have the government unions grown so powerful and are so inherently political that the people who are supposed to offer leadership instead basically react or dance to the tune played by the government unions?
JD, you ask the very difficult question. At what point, and with this administration, do the decisions they're making about those leadership of our agencies, is it about politics, the maintenance of their relationship with the unions and their political power and their political money, or is it about protecting the public?
David, I want to get back to the argument, not so much to engage in personalities, but understand a little bit more of what you're seeing on the ground back there at home in Arizona. We chronicled the fact that a retired VA doctor, Sam Foote, came forward with the revelation that there were two different lists here, one for show and one that offered the truth, and in so doing, that delay, that inertia, may have proven fatal for up to 40 patients in Phoenix. Now, there are those, just given the way that these stories unfold, there are those that a backlash gets created saying, oh, it's someone who's left the system. Now they're going to serve as a whistleblower. Gee, do they have an axe to grind? Your take on Dr. Sam Foote, his integrity, the veracity of his story, and why you and three of your colleagues, or two other colleagues for a trio there from the Phoenix area, wrote the secretary to say Sharon Hellman and the two other executives had to go.
Well, JD, in our particular case, it's layer after layer after layer. When you've actually, you've held the same position I have, or I do. And when you actually have a week or two where you've been having coffee meetings and sit-downs and lunches with folks who've been affected by the system, who are in the system, or formerly in the system, at some point, do you believe or not believe the doctor? Well, what happens when the other narratives have very, very similar stories attached to it? And you have this obligation to say, look, there's this collapse in faith in the system, and I'm hearing it from current employees, past employees, veterans with horrible issues that won't go into the VA right now, who are actually outside the VA for their medical care because of the crisis of faith. You have to step up and protect those veterans and move forward on fixing what's wrong. JD, can I throw one other thing at you?
Absolutely. Please do, David.
Because I know you worked on this years ago. We have a system where the incentives, I believe, are designed very, very poorly. You've heard the story repeatedly about, well, there was two waiting lists and there was a mechanism where they did it to paper and shredded. We have bits of the documents on that, and the committee has apparently a lot of documents on that. But if you step back and think about it, if that was the path to bonuses, we have screwed up in the way you design performance bonuses at the VA. And we need to sit down and completely rethink how we incentivize good behavior and how what we've done up to this point has incentivized bad behavior.
Congressman David Schweikert, representing Arizona's 5th Congressional District. Hey, I used to resemble that remark. David, we thank you very much for your time. We look forward to following up with you on this vital issue and others of concern, not only to Arizonans, but to all Americans. Thanks so very much for your time. Congressman David Schweikert right there. So, what's your take on this? As the VA, has it been ever thus with the VA? Inefficiencies, frustration for veterans? We'd love to hear from you. Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #AmericasForum. You can also email us, connect@newsmaxtv.com, and facebook.com/Newsmax. We're going to be right back.